So yeah, Jim,
Yeah.
let me tell you, things are getting crazier by the moment over here. I was actually just reading before coming on. There was an article posted by Onda Cero, which is a media outlet here in Spain, that is saying that the General Secretary of the Spanish FA has requested that UEFA put pressure on the Spanish government to basically, actually, he's asked UEFA to suspend the Spanish Federation because they're upset with the proceedings that you were just talking about that the Spanish government are now carrying out in terms of looking into whether they want to ban or suspend Luis Rubiales altogether from football,
Yeah.
which seems absolutely mental because if they were to do that, then no Spanish club could participate in any European competition whatsoever. So that's going to be one of the talking points, I guess, within the meeting that's going to be held later this afternoon. It's mental. It's totally mind-boggling. It's surreal, this whole thing.
I mean, what's your, before we go on, I'll get Carl and Simon in a second. What's your own take in this, Emma? Do you think he was as out of line as many people there think he was?
For me, yes. And the reason being is that this is not an isolated incident. It's just an example of an established pattern of behavior that, according to these women, has always been there. And it's not just him, it's a systemic problem within the Federation. They have been speaking out for many, many years now about how they feel as though they have been mistreated, they've been abused, they've been humiliated, ridiculed, manipulated, they've been silenced, and people were actually afraid to go play for the Spanish national team. They didn't want to represent it because they didn't feel safe in the work environment. I think it's important to stress that this is a work environment as well. And so even Veronica Boquete, who is one of the legendary players of Spanish football here in Spain, this morning she was on the news repeatedly saying this problem still exists within the federation. It hasn't gone away. So he
Right,
just got
right.
caught
Yeah.
publicly with something that's been happening for a very long time.
So you're saying, Emma saying Simon, it's a wider problem, and this has been simmering in the background. This guy, in a very public moment, when the Spanish women won the World Cup, chose to do what he did, and now he's got to pay the consequences.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you've got to be conversant with the entire journey of the facts. So then, you're talking about the specifics of an instance.
Yeah.
And we've got a moment in time. We've got an instance which is we're debating about the behaviour, the optics of that behaviour. And then you've got a backdrop, which is a group of Spanish players that didn't want to play this time last year, that refused to play for the coach, that have now been replaced by another group of players that have gone on the World Cup.
Right. Do you think he should just stand down?
I have a difficulty with it because on one hand you've got two diametrically opposed versions of the circumstances. Do I think the optics are appropriate? No, I don't. Do I think he should have done what he did? No, I don't, because I think he's put himself in the way of it. And then I look behind that and say, okay, well that's an observation. He's put himself in the way of what? Which he talks about, which is an agenda, and he talks about faux feminism and him being the victim of this. Right? And I look at it and say, okay, I don't know enough about that detail, but what I do understand is that there are two diametrically opposed versions of events in terms of the player concerned giving an initial reaction, which is very different to the reaction that she's now giving now. On one hand, we're being told that the Spanish Federation are put her under pressure to come into line with being part of an apology, being part of a changing of circumstance. On the other hand, we've got people suggesting that maybe people that have agendas and activism in their minds that have also gotten into her. So we're in this difficult situation where the man himself is absolutely adamant that this is not something he did in a fashion that was inappropriate. I think him kissing a female player is an unwise move. I think it puts him in the way of controversy, and he shouldn't have done it. But then again, if we take people out of positions of authority solely on the optics, we're going to have very few people around doing anything in the world.
Is it just optics, Emma? Is that what we're talking about? I mean, this guy cannot go on, can he?
Well, people who know him really well, people who have worked with him in the past, would tell you no, this is not about the optics. He has a long history of reported sexual abuse, whether it's misogynistic behavior or sexist behavior, but there are actual police reports and official complaints that have been provided to the police or to the courts by men, by women as well as a litany of other scandals that have come to light over the years. So there have been many people, including the Spanish media, including people who have worked with him, including even Javier Tebas, the president of La Liga. He put out quite an extraordinary statement on Twitter. I think for anybody who's interested they speak about these issues for a very, very long time about how he's managed to skirt all of these controversies. He's been able to come out on the other side on top. Obviously, he's denied everything, and you're innocent until proven guilty, of course, and they will have to be investigated. Some of these things have been investigated as well, but haven't really gone anywhere. And so people feel as though he has always been able to basically rise up because nothing has ever happened.
Yes.
So he
Yes.
feels untouchable. He feels
Right.
invincible.
It seems
So
to
he
me there's no
gets
way
into
out
it.
for him. I mean, from the way Semra's describing it, and Semra knows much more than any of the three of us.
Yeah.
This guy, there's history here.
If I'm being honest,
Yeah.
before Sandra came on, I was sitting here thinking to myself, this seems not harsh, but it seems like it's the tip of the iceberg, the federation problem. The more people speak, the more educated on what is actually going on in a little bit of history
Over a period of
over
time.
a period of time, he has no choice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's just swaying me a little bit, Sam.
So this is going to find its way to the surface. I mean, this is a country that gave us
Yeah, but look what his old mum's doing. I mean, I suppose, Semra, that the Spanish media are outside the church, that his old mum has locked herself in.
No, neither.
Yeah, I mean, I literally just heard about this right before coming on air. So I was
Right.
trying to investigate what on earth is happening there, but it does seem as though it is what you're saying, that she has locked herself in the church
And
she's
she's
gone
on
on
hunger strike. I mean,
It's
But that's a sideshow, Jim. I mean, this is
it is absolutely a sideshow.
This is the country that gave us Jesus Hill, in terms of his brand of particular football administration. But we've got to look at all of these
And
things.
don't forget VR, the predecessor as well.
Absolutely. Now, this is the bottom line behind the facts. If indeed all of these are seated in substance and not seated in an altitude of serving up an agenda, serving up an outcome. You know, I'm going to say something, and a lot of people go like, I watched Jurgen Klopp yesterday, and I thought to myself, I watched him hug every single one of his players, and every single one of his coaching staff. He turned around and picked up the female member of coaching staff and thought, well, we better watch that, Jurgen, because people are going to turn around and say you treated her differently than you treated other people. The balance has to be right. Now, if he is indeed a person that has a track record of all of the things that Samuel has just said, then he's done.
Yeah.
He's toasted. It was a matter of time. And if he's been able to preside over a fiefdom because no one's had the propensity to want to take into account, and he's brought himself into that situation by his ridiculous behaviour of kissing a player after the World Cup final, then he will get precisely what he deserves.
Yeah.
I just want to get the balance between what finds its way into the media and what is finding its way into the media for, against the reality of what he's done. And if he has done all the things that we've just said, then he's gone anyway.
But that's the thing, and Semra this lunchtime has brought us that exact balance. So, second guess it, Semra, what's next?
Well, I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in this meeting within the Federation today. Because obviously there's still a lot of those members who do support Luis Rubiales. And we saw them applauding him along in the assembly on Friday. But after FIFA decided to suspend him for 90 days, are they going to change their tune? Are they going to try and save their own positions? Are they going to try and say, okay, well, you know what, actually, maybe the right course of action here is to actually push him out now, and that way we actually get to stay in our jobs. And quite honestly, I don't really know, because I think no one really knows. And I think up until now, it's been pretty clear that they stand with Rubiales. They don't stand with Julian Mosso. They have been very outlandish in insisting that he has been telling the truth and that she has been lying, almost to the point that it comes across as bullying or harassment or gaslighting. So I'm not sure if now they're going to change their minds, but maybe we won't hear much of anything in terms of what they're going to do going forward in the near future, or they may decide to say, you know what, we're going to stand by our man, we're going to fight with them until the very end. But I think another thing is now the interim president does have to decide if he wants to carry on with this request that was put forward by the Secretary General to UEFA, or if he wants to withdraw that as well. So this is happening obviously at the same time that the administrative court is also meant to be convening and having a look at all of this. And in parallel, by the way, I don't know if you've seen this, but there's also criminal proceedings that have been opened up against him. There have been 4 official reports that have been taken to the Madrid prosecutor's office, who then in turn took it to the national courts. And now they're looking at this as a possible act of sexual aggression. And that, of course, is linked back to this law that was put in place last year, which is called only yes is yes, and it's around consent. So he may even find himself in a whole other world of trouble here as it relates to criminal.
Okay, Semra, thank you so much. Semra Hunter, who of course we see regularly on our